Welcome to everybody watching today. We have a really fantastic interview lined up for you regarding the proposed Port Kembla Gas Terminal. Thank you to you, Kylie, for joining me this morning. Now, before we get started on the list of questions that I have for you, would you please be able to introduce yourself, your role, and also the AIE business as well?
Sure, my pleasure. So my name's Kylie Hargreaves and I'm the Head of Government and Stakeholder Engagement for Australian Industrial Energy, otherwise known as AIE. And I guess my role is basically what it says on the tin. My job is to communicate the objectives of AIE and the project to stakeholders and government, to listen to what they think the benefits of the project might be, as well as to listen to their concerns. And obviously, if I can, to address those concerns. And lastly, to try and help the project move through its government approval processes.
Fantastic, thank you. And so before we get into, I suppose, the detail of the questions, would you be able to give everybody an overview of the Port Kembla Gas Terminal and what those benefits are for the Illawarra region?
Sure. So it's a reasonably simple project. It's essentially a liquefied natural gas import terminal. So what a lot of people think is that means a lot of onshore infrastructure, but really it's quite simple. This is a regasification unit that sits on a sea-going vessel called a floating storage regasification unit, otherwise known as an FSRU. And so the project is basically LNG carriers coming in and out of Port Kembla, delivering LNG loads to the FSRU, which is tied up to berth 101 in Port Kembla. Then the liquefied natural gas is warmed up with the use of seawater, because it's currently stored at about minus 161 degrees centigrade. And we warm it up with seawater, turn it into gas and put it into an underground pipeline that runs from berth 101 around to Fringilla and connects into the Gemina pipeline. So that's the project. It's reasonably simple. Import terminals are used around the world where either natural gas is currently transported by overland pipeline, which is really quite an expensive way to move large volumes of gas, because obviously it's gas, so it's large. If you liquefy it down to about 600 times its normal size, you can obviously ship a lot more natural gas. So if you've got to move it over long distances, or you don't actually have a reliable supply of natural gas, import terminals are a really good way to actually solve that security and affordability problem. So yeah, East Coast obviously needs to have an option like that, as our gas supplies in the southern gas fields and the northern Queensland are either long distances away or are dwindling. So the benefits really boil down to basically retailers, industrial clients, and the New South Wales economy, the Eastern gas economy, being able to source the gas when they need it, where they need it, and ideally at a price that is more competitive than they might otherwise be able to get from just domestic sources.
Fantastic, thank you. And there was a really fantastic announcement that came out that AIE had reached a significant milestone in the project. Would you be able to share with everybody what that milestone was?
Yeah, so when we first thought about the project, the main aim was to supply industrial clients almost exclusively. Now, industrial clients, obviously, as you can understand, just need a steady feed of natural gas. They don't tend to go up and down. But what we found was the terminal can actually deliver a lot of gas. So at the time that we applied for our first development consent, it was about 100 PJs per annum. So what that actually means is about 70% of all of New South Wales gas needs. And it was going to be just fed out, you know, on a constant sort of flow. That's a lot of gas, and some of the really big users of gas are retailers. And retailers, interestingly, have a very seasonal profile. So they use a lot more gas in the cooler months and a lot less gas in the summer months. And so they needed more gas than we could supply during the winter months, but obviously less gas during the summer months.
Right.
So the modification that we had to apply for was to essentially allow us to go from that constant throughput state to essentially being able to dial the ship up or dial the ship down, depending on what our customers need. And so we had to put a modification through to do that. Didn't change anything about the construction or the footprint or anything like that, but it did allow us to dial the ship up and down and to bring in more ships of LNG as we might need, of different sizes throughout the year. And got that just recently, the 20th of April, which was a great milestone to get. So we can now hopefully move on and get those customers signing up for gas supply.
Fantastic. That's very exciting. Very exciting. Well done. I know it takes a huge amount of work to get to this point. So well done. In terms of the next steps progressing to construction, could you talk us through what those actually are? Yeah,
so typically when you get your development consent, you then have a period of what they call post-consent approvals. This is, depending on the project, you're having to get management plans of different kinds, noise, traffic, environmental, water, all those sorts of things. So we've been doing that since our original development consent back also April last year. So we're almost finished with those. We've got a couple left, but they're pretty much, we're shovel ready. We describe ourselves as shovel ready.
Great.
Which means if, except for the one or two that we've got left to land in terms of the post-consent approvals, we could start construction in the next sort of couple of months. The issue is for projects like this that obviously depend on international investment as well as Twiggy Forest. We've got two Japanese partners, JIRA and Marubeni. They need to take what's called final investment decision. And that's where they basically greenlight the project and off you run. For them to be able to do that, they need to obviously know that the capital they put in is going to be returned, and it's critical that they have customers who have signed on to supply or capacity agreements with AIE. Doesn't have to be 100% capacity or anything like that, but it does have to be a significant proportion of what the terminal can deliver, and we need to get those customer agreements for us to be able to greenlight construction.
That makes a lot of sense, definitely. So fantastic. And I know that AIE knows this because you guys have been so wonderful engaging with i3net, coming along to the events that we have had through the year, including the fantastic beer and pizza night that we had last year. So as you guys know, there's so much expertise in our local region. And so I wanted to ask, what local content will the head contractor be looking for? And if companies haven't been involved in registering their interest, how can they be into the future?
Yeah, great. So we appointed, and I'm gonna murder their name, obviously, and they'll never forgive me. But Speaker Pack Solitange Bachet as our EPC contractor. I'm going to call them SCSB because otherwise I'm going to butcher their name every couple of seconds. So they've been engaged as our EPC contractor. They have already engaged some local contractors to assist with preliminary geotech investigation work.
Right.
But one of the things that we actually, as AIE, went for when we put out to tender was that we wanted to have a strong local participation plan. So they know that it's really important to us that we try to source as much local content as we can. The real work, unfortunately, doesn't kick in until we, start construction. But nevertheless, Speaker Pack are trying to keep a register of local suppliers who are interested in delivering services. So they do have a portal on their own website, which is probably easier for your listeners to go to AIE's website, because on our front page there's a contractors, suppliers button, which will connect you through to the portal, and you can register your interest and what you supply there. We are probably going to need quite a range of things locally. So, you know, everything from, you know, sort of cleaning and security to major demolition work, you know, community engagement type services during the construction period, and engineering support services, lots of sort of different size packages, really. So anyone who's sort of local and interested, I'd really strongly recommend that they go to the portal and register, because if nothing else, they can also get regular updates on the project. So they'll know as we get closer and closer to construction, when these packages might start to appear.
Fantastic. That sounds really, really, really positive. And just from obviously being close with the AIE team over this time, and also meeting with Speaker Pack as well, you know, they are fantastic people to work with. So it's yeah, it's very exciting. Do you think there would be an opportunity to include, I suppose, a local content percentage or weighting requirement for the project?
So we haven't done that in the tender process. We didn't put that in. What we did require was what we called the local industry participation plan, which was where they identified all the sorts of services they're likely to need.
Great.
And where we asked them to identify which ones of those they thought they would be able to source locally, because as you said, the Wollongong area is amazing in terms of capacity and capability. It is a new technology, and it is a new, like, Australia's never had an LNG import terminal before. So it is unusual, and the FSRU is something Australia's never seen before. But obviously there's a lot in the project that's very familiar, and certainly within the capabilities of everyone in the local area. So we're also asked them specifically, for example, to look at local Indigenous opportunities, apprenticeship opportunities, and things like that. So we're hoping to have some really good engagement coming out once we get the green light.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for expanding on that. Late last year, we were very lucky to have APA attend one of our industry breakfasts, and they shared with us the proposed Port Kembla to Wilton pipeline project. With the terminal's progression, does this mean that the pipeline will also be an essential component to the Port Kembla LNG plant?
Wouldn't it be great to have two pipelines coming out of Port Kembla? Yeah, so look, the development consent that we have and the modification did not change the original concept, which was the 6-kilometre pipeline from Berth 101 around to Quingilla. APA has proposed a new 37-kilometre pipeline to connect to the Port Kembla Gas Terminal. And we actually support both of those pipelines, because, you know, the choice it gives to gas shippers, retailers and large industrials is fantastic. You know, competition in the marketplace obviously would go up. There's plenty of gas. As I said, you can bring, you know, an awful lot of gas through the terminal. We can serve north and south. Each one of them has a slightly different footprint, obviously. So again, if you had both of them, more of New South Wales would be serviced. That'll be a commercial decision, obviously, for APA. But we personally, as an old sort of New South Wales government rep as well, I would love to see two pipelines competing out of Port Kembla. That'd be great.
Yeah, us too. We think it'd be fantastic.
That's right.
Definitely. No, thank you. Well, we raced through those. They were actually all the questions that I had for you. Do you think, was there anything that I missed, or anything extra that you wanted to add?
Only that I wanted to thank you, Bianca, and also your board and all your members for i3net, because the support you guys have given us from day one has been amazing and was critical in us, you know, selecting Port Kembla along with other reasons, but the support was brilliant. And you've been there for, you know, what, almost 2 years now. So I'm hoping that you'll be there with us when my beautiful goddaughter, a Hogue galleon, sails in and comes to Berth 101, where we hope she'll be there for you know, a good number of years while New South Wales businesses can access the gas.
Fantastic. Actually, do you want to share the story about that? Because some people might not know about the yogurt. Yeah, that might be an interesting story for everyone.
I am the godmother of a very large baby. So the FSRU, which is called the Ho Galleon, was christened, I guess, is a way to describe it, in South Korea last year sometime, and I was invited across to be the godmother for the ship, which is an experience like no other. I had no idea what I was getting into, but it was amazing. Hogue and the South Korean shipyards really know how to do naming of ships.
Great.
And they're huge, like seriously huge. Like you're standing here and you're just looking up, and they're beautiful and amazing, and lots of flowers, lots of streamers, lots of firecrackers, and a huge axe. So I had to cut the string with this golden axe.
Amazing.
It was a lot of fun, and I was a little bit nervous because I started looking up, I had to give a speech, of course, and I had to look up, about the history and all the rest of it of godmothers, and it's pretty, some of the early practices are pretty blood curdling.
Right.
And I was like, I'm hoping it's champagne, but it wasn't. It was balloons and firecrackers, which are apparently more environmentally friendly, which is great.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent.
It was a lot of fun, but I'm looking forward to seeing my goddaughter come sailing through.
Oh, fantastic. What a wonderful experience, and an honour that definitely that you deserve, considering how hard you've worked on the project. So that's fantastic. Thank you, Kylie. And you did mention before that if people wanted to find out more, they could jump onto the AIE website. Is that the way that you would recommend for people to find out more information?
Yeah, definitely. So start with the website. It not only has our contact details on there, but you can subscribe for regular updates on the project if you want to. And there is, on the Contact Us page, there's a direct link through to SCSB's supplier registration page. And of course, because we're such a proud member of i3net, my phone and email contact details are also listed on your corporate partners directory page, and I'm always happy to take questions from anybody.
Oh, thank you, Kylie. That's awesome. Well, that brings us to the close. So thank you so much for your time this morning. Thank you for being wonderful to work with. We love the whole AIE team. So you guys are great. So thank you for your time, Kylie. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Bianca. Have a good one.
You too. Bye.
See ya.